Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards. Welcome to InFocus, a weekly program where we zoom in on what's happening within and throughout the government, your government. In January 2024, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis launched a groundbreaking initiative designed to enhance financial literacy among the nation's youth. The Financial Education and Savings Program will provide a savings account for young people in St. Kitts and Nevis and the requisite education on budgeting, savings, investing, and much more as it seeks to nurture financial responsibility for future generations. With me in studio today to share more about the program and its role across the Federation is Dr. Marcus Natta, Cabinet Secretary and Chair of the Financial Education and Savings Program. He will be joined by Sybil Welsh from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, who is a key partner in this innovative initiative. Stay with us as we delve into your government, your business.
Madam Speaker, in collaboration with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and I want to thank the ECCB and other stakeholders, our government will spearhead a comprehensive financial education and saving program for our people, our young people, in both St. Kitts and Nevis, covering crucial topics like budgeting, saving, investing, entrepreneurship, and understanding financial markets. This program will empower our youth and the knowledge needed to navigate the complexities of the financial world.
Cabinet Secretary Dr. Marcus Natta and also Sybil Welsh from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we want to begin with the Financial Education and Savings Program, as we discussed. And persons who are listening and viewing this program would have heard the Prime Minister just talk a bit about the program back in 2023 during the budget debate when he spoke about this innovative program that the government was going to launch. So, Capsec, if you can explain to us a bit more about the program, what really is the Financial Education and Savings Program?
Yes, so thank you again for allowing us to be here and spread the word a bit about this. So the Prime Minister, during his budget address, as you rightly said, in December 2023, launched this vision of having this particular program. It's a three-pronged program. One component deals with financial education, skills building, and so forth. And the second prong is the investment portion in terms of having shares, and I'll delve a little bit deeper into that. And the third portion of that is so it's the savings account and the savings account for children, the educational portion, and the investment portion. So those are the three prongs. The savings account will be a cash savings of $500 in our indigenous bank, the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank, that will be set up for children between the ages of 5 and 18 years of age. The other prong, which is the financial education component, and I have Sybil here who will delve a little bit deeper into that a little later on, will be for students in school as well as those who may have just stepped out of formal education because they're now 16, 17, as the case may be. And we want to also twin that with purchasing of shares in two of our local companies, first of all, the SKNIS Anguilla National Bank, and also the cable initially.
Elaborate, if you will, Capsec, on the primary objective of this program.
Yeah, so, I mean, the vision of the Prime Minister, and he said this, I think, from his inaugural speech when in Warner Park at the swearing-in ceremony, that he is strong about empowering our youth. So this is just one aspect, I think, of his overall vision. And the primary purpose is, well, maybe more than one purpose. One is to instill a sense of saving, culture of saving, and not just saving and having stagnant savings, but how can you leverage that savings to do more and build on that wealth. And the idea is to hopefully create generational wealth, and so that with each generation going forward, we see an improvement in their standard of living in terms of their own financial resources, in terms of families. But also, the other purpose, I believe, is also to educate the young persons on investments, how to look at companies, investing in companies, look at shares, understanding shares, and how you can, again, leverage that as you go along. And not just start with, stick with just two companies, but be able to branch out and look at other types of investments. So overall, I think the Prime Minister was clear on his vision that he wants to really empower young people and therefore help future generations.
Now, we established at the beginning, of course, that you are the chair of the task force that is set to set up the details in terms of establishing how exactly things will be done and when they will be done. Tell us a bit about your role as the chairman.
Well, my role is to get out of the way a little bit and let experts like Sybil and the rest of the team. We have an excellent committee, and I'll share those names a little bit.
You're an excellent chair and excellent expert.
You know, but I really lean heavily on the expertise. We have a wide range of persons there. And so I suppose my role is more to make sure that we stay on course with what the Prime Minister has said, because once the Prime Minister speaks, as you know, Ian, you know, it's really up to us to make sure that becomes a reality. So we don't want him to be a liar, right? So we want to make whatever he says come to fruition and be successful as well. So my role is really, you know, just coordinating our meetings and making sure we stay on track. We do a lot of more work outside of the meetings as well, so staying in touch. We have established several subcommittees within the task force to deal with particular issues. As I said, it's a three-pronged program. So we have a subcommittee that deals with financial education, which is headed by Ms. Welsh. And we have one on the process. What is the process going to look like for persons to get into the program, matriculate through the program, and exit the program successfully. And we have a committee that deals with the investment strategy portion of the program, as well as we are looking at a communications outreach subcommittee as well, to really bring the word out, doing things like what we're doing today in terms of educating persons about what the program is about.
Okay, let me bring Ms. Welsh into the conversation now. Of course, Ms. Welsh, you're familiar. Everyone is saying it's a Nevis who has not been living under a rock, knows who Sybil Welsh is for many years. Of course, as you established earlier, you've been with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and there are a number of projects, particularly dealing with financial literacy, financial information, financial education that you've been spearheaded. So tell us a bit about your role on the task force.
Well, my role is to be part of a team that shapes the curriculum. And that is not just the core team for the education curriculum, but the wider task force. And that what we want to do, as Chairman has said, is that we really want to advance a certain mindset of savings, of financial planning, of financial stability. We want to create intergenerational wealth. I'd like to lean on the quote that says that your thoughts seed actions. Your action seed habit. Your habits seed character. Your character seed destiny. So if we can change our thinking, our mindset as it relates to money and financial planning, it means we change our destiny. And I think that is what the whole vision of the Prime Minister has set for us to advance as a team, as a task force. How do we influence the mindset of the nation, starting with our future, our youth, from 5 to 18, in a way that they don't just see money as consumption, but they see money as a tool that advances their financial security. And you start by, as I said, shaping the mindsets to the curriculum. Now, when you talk about finances and money, you have to make it exciting. It's not something that people get up and say, I want to learn how to save and invest, okay? They say, I want to get up and spend, I want. So how do you shift the conversation from wants to needs to not just looking at consumption, but looking at building and growing and investing? And you have to do that by creating a curriculum that excites. And so we talk about edutainment, education with entertainment. We talk about making sure that it's practical and relatable. So we look a lot at games, and we look at role playing, and we look at scenarios, and we look at activities that they can see themselves and their households in that type of discussion. And that they're not just learning by listening, which when we learn we forget, but learn by doing. And when we learn by doing, we understand. And so that's what our principal role is.
Yeah, and that comes basically from your experience, the expertise that you've had over the years in dealing with matters where you've been working with children and helping to get the population overall more educated in terms of financial education.
Yes, certainly. You know, the more that you engage persons of all ages, is the more that you refine techniques and tools that work. And so we have, over the years as a central bank, been in the forefront of financial education, savings and investments. And so these tools that we have designed and refined and shaped, those are what we are bringing to the fore, along with other members of the task force. Because, you know, when you're talking about savings and investment, you're talking about people's expertise and people's experiences that help to create that sort of nice wealth toolkit that will really be a positive influence on nation building.
We'll come back to the task force a bit later, but I want to stick in particular in terms of the program and its design and the benefits that a person can get a better sense of what it really is and the work that has been done to date, CAPSEC. So what would you say the factors that influence the design of the program now, to where it's at this point?
So we started working assiduously since December, actually. Even before the official announcement, there were some machinations behind the scenes, as you can imagine. But we've been working assiduously since December, and have, I think, come up with a nice roadmap as to where we want to go in terms of rolling out the program. I can say that we will roll out the program in some phases. The full program won't be rolled out immediately, and I think that's for good reason as well. What we have seen as a committee, as a task force, that is sort of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, is establishing of savings accounts. That's something people do every day. So that we feel is something that we can easily get done, and we hope to begin that process formally in September of this year, at the start of the school year or shortly thereafter. The idea for that particular portion is that $500 will be deposited into a new savings account at the SKNIS Anguilla National Bank for citizens between the ages of 5 and 18 who are in school. And from that forms part of the $1,000 package that the Prime Minister announced. The other $500 will go towards investments in the cable as well as the SKNIS Anguilla National Bank. So that portion we envision will be a little later down in the year, because that takes a little bit more than just the opening of a savings account. So that's where we are in terms of the cash savings account investments. And as Sybil just mentioned, They have worked, the task force, the subcommittee for financial education has worked really hard. The curriculum is essentially done, yes?
Yes, the curriculum
yes, they've been testing it with teachers and some focus groups and tweaking it here and there. We're looking at what additional resources we may need to provide to teachers in the new school year to help assist them in rolling out the curriculum. We have ensured that the curriculum is not going to be onerous, so that we are adding, extra work to the teachers' already heavy workload. So we are well on the way, I think, with rolling out the program. And so maybe in about 2 or 3 phases, we'll roll that out. The Prime Minister said that he wanted it done in 2024, before the end of 2024, and we're well on track to get all of that done.
Okay, so you mentioned that it's going to be done in phases. Ideally, have you worked out how many phases as yet?
I think we're thinking 3 phases. The first one being the savings account, as I said, maybe in September, and the financial education portion will begin rolling out in the new school year as well, in that first term. And then finally, hopefully by December for sure, we envision establishing the investment portion of the program.
Okay. Who is eligible to be in this program?
Okay. So children, young persons between the ages of 5 and 18 who are citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is citizen by birth, citizenship by descent. You also have to be here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and enrolled in school. And so that is the basic eligibility criteria at this moment.
Okay. Could you explain, Miss Welsh, the importance of persons at that age, 5 to 18, and starting at the younger age, of course, as you mentioned, there's some key things that would have to be done, because you can't educate a person at 5 the same way you would educate someone who is in high school at, say, 16, 17. So talk to us a bit about the importance of building that at an early age, that the know-how in terms of savings. I mean, the investing part will come out later, of course. It's a bit more complicated, but the savings part of it in particular, the know-how of to do that.
I think at any age, one is able to absorb the fundamentals of savings and even investments. They may not call it investments as a 5-year-old, but certainly the thinking about what is it that I really need when I make a choice. You know, when you go to the store, your parent may say, you can have this or that. That in itself is putting on the table the issue of choices. And when we're talking about saving and investment, it's about choices. It's about, do I consume now, or do I defer consumption for a greater good? So it's all of these principles that you want persons at all ages, particularly in the youth aspect, when you are 5 and 6, to start to shape that thinking. You know, they say that our thinking is really shaped in our youth. And so if you can get that training, that nurturing at that young age, you're then building a citizen who is better poised to add a greater contribution, understanding choices, wants and needs, intergenerational wealth and legacy. But what you do it as fun. I think most of us remember the nursery rhymes from our school days. We may not remember the geography, even if we have a 1 in that. But we remember the nursery rhymes, remember the Bible stories. We learn by storytelling, which is why stories from our ancestors have lasted over centuries. Because stories, things that metaphors, analogies, you know, where you say, don't hang your hat where your hand can't reach, or things like that we remember. And so that is how you want to make the learning and the facilitation of savings and investments relatable, enjoyable, and something that resonates in the whole mind of the individual, that transforms their thinking. And that's what we want to do. It's transformation of thinking. It's really when you change the thinking, so a man thinketh, so he is. So a child thinketh, so he or she is. And so that's what we want to shape. And that is why we are very passionate about making sure we have engaged the curriculum and ministries of education in both St. Kitts and Nevis. And now we have spoken to teachers, and now we are going in with the trainers when we start the school year to really get everyone to contribute and to buy in, or to give us some other aspects we need to look at. Because while the curriculum has been drafted, it's an ongoing work in progress, because as you shape and as you mold, new things come on board, and you sort of be agile to adjust. But the core fundamentals of saving and investment are fundamentally shaped.
Based on your experience, and I recall back in the day, persons had piggy banks. Is that still popular? Do persons pass that down to their children? Do they have piggy banks?
I don't think that persons, you don't see a lot. How I can see it is, usually in the past, you would see a lot in the stores. You're not seeing that. What we encourage persons to do, however, is move. Some persons have co-ops at their schools, at their church groups. We also encourage persons to move it to the financial system, where you can earn interest. But it's a start. It's a start to start saving, because as I said, once you make something a habit, then that changes, okay? So I think the issue is you want the habit of talking about savings and investing. That changes the mindset, that changes the thinking, that changes the character. So that changes the destiny, because I think at the end of the day, the Prime Minister's vision is about what is the destiny that I want to see our petitions and divisions at. And I think that is where we are looking at making sure that the steps line up with that vision.
And just to piggyback on what Sybil was saying, what we've ensured is that we're working in synergy with the Ministries of Education on St. Kitts and on Nevis. And so whatever we are doing is dovetailing nicely into whatever the existing curriculum was at the time. So again, that's helpful for teachers as well as the students. So it's not nothing additional per se, but it fits in nicely with what they're already doing. And the subcommittee has worked hard to ensure that the curriculum matches the different stages as you go along. So as you rightly pointed out, Ian, a 5-year-old versus a 16-year-old, they would have different modes of being educated on the financial education portion, but also they would have different tasks, different activities, and so on that they would be doing. And the key thing for this particular program is that everyone will benefit from the financial education portion of it, because you may have young persons who are in classes who are not citizens and are not eligible, but they will still benefit from getting that educational component of the program. And so that's a win-win, I think, for everybody.
You're concerned about persons who are not eligible, that they may feel that they are being left out?
Not necessarily. We appreciate and understand that there are persons who are not citizens, but when we are utilizing federal funds, especially from our treasury and so forth, and we want to gear this towards our citizens, right? There are many programs that benefit all persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, and so it is not to be seen as being one that is excluding persons, but really for us to look at how we can empower our own young citizens.
And just to emphasize,
I want to add as well that, as Dr. Marcus said, is that they're benefiting from the education, and that in itself is a significant investment. So while we honor and we applaud and know the significance of the savings and the investment, which is a huge investment, we also want to honor the education, which they will also receive. Yes. So it's not that they're missing out. I think they may not be getting every aspect, but what they're getting is still significant.
And just to emphasize in terms of the criteria, it would be persons who are born in St. Kitts and Nevis and persons who are descendant, but of course critically they must be in St. Kitts and Nevis and enrolled in the local school system. All right, we're going to take our first break. We'll be right back with more In Focus. Stay with us.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus. We continue our discussion with the Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Marcus Natta, and Ms. Sybil Welsh from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and we are discussing the financial education and savings programs that the government has launched to benefit persons, children, who are between the ages of 5 to 18 here in St. Kitts and Nevis. All right, Dr. Natta, we want to talk a bit more about and look closer at the design of the programs now. And of course you mentioned it's a three-pronged approach that starts with the comprehensive financial education program. And Ms. Welsh, of course, this is where you come in as someone who is assisting with the design of that curriculum. What can you tell us?
Well, what we are doing with the curriculum, as I indicated prior, is to make sure at each stage is relatable, also to make sure it's integrated into the system, the education system, so that the curriculum developed for primary schools that focus on savings, that also is integrated into that. So it's not two separate programs. The high schools, they do not have a set program, and so what we are looking at is making sure that there are disciplines in the curriculum that align with the subject matter. And so at every stage, we are making sure that we are working hand in hand with educators. I must also say that we are designing the lesson plans. So for consideration by the teachers who are going to implement it in the classrooms, so that they don't have to go back, as Dr. Marcus indicated, and do a separate work that they have to do. We are providing them in PowerPoint with the games, the tools, and the activities. So that will help them to be able to enjoy and not see it as another set of workload, but to enjoy it. That's what we are looking at.
But I want to drill down a bit more in terms of the fact that you mentioned that it's not going to be, it's a part of, to complement what is currently being done in schools then. So for instance, are you saying if they, of course they will teach money when it comes to maths, you know, how to be able to add money. So you're saying that, well, what are you saying in terms of some of that linkage, some of the crossover, that how do you envision that crossover will be made?
So for the primary schools, they have a curriculum that is focused on financial literacy. So what our role is to look at that curriculum and supplement it to ensure that it covers in a more robust manner all of the key elements that they need as a foundation, so that when they get to high school, that they have that foundation for the high school curriculum. But the high school curriculum, because there is no set financial literacy program, what we are doing is looking across the curriculum to see where there's alignment, there's synergies. There are synergies. And so we are then taking out elements out of the curriculum and aligning it with that. So that will be an enhancement to what is that particular focus. So you can look at financial literacy. I give an example. If you're talking about intergenerational wealth, that can be on economics, it can be on history, it can be on home ec. So you have multiple subject areas that you can align that with on those topics. So what we do is take the topics out of the curriculum and then infuse them into the disciplines already set for the high school. And that is how we go about it. And then we engage the teachers and train the trainers and get their feedback on how best they see this, and the tools that we propose, how best they see those to be employed and deployed.
And the teachers' engagement, how has that been going? Have they bought into the program essentially?
We have started at the curriculum and the Ministry of Education level. What we are planning to do at the start of the school system is to go in with train the trainers and more discussion and engagement. So currently we are working with the curriculums unit the ministries of education in both St. Kitts and Nevis, and then we are looking at the scheduling of how we're going to have the trainers. So we're looking at the trainers somewhere just after the September, after the independence, and we're going with the trainers. And then we start with 2 pilot schools in each country to sort of test the waters and then expand it by once we get through the first semester.
Capsec, how has your collaboration been with the Ministry of Education?
Well, excellent. I mean, we have a member who sits on the task force from the Ministry of Education. And I mean, we collaborate well with the Education Curriculum Development Unit and the team there, and also our colleagues on Nevis. So, I mean, this is a national initiative. The Prime Minister announced it as a national initiative, and so we're ensuring that officials from both islands are heavily involved in what we're doing.
How is the testing? How long is the testing expected to be for, Ms. Welsh?
Well, we're looking at doing the testing in 3 months and get some feedback. And then, as I said, it's supposed to be agile. So as you get feedback, you listen to the feedback, you massage what you're doing, and then you keep adding to it. So it's a build out from the center, and you build out. We're looking to make sure that we start and we build up project champions who will then be able, because you want to have that constant champion of the project. And so it's important to, get persons excited, give them the support, listen to their feedback, make any necessary, retrofitting, and then advance. So we see it as a partnership.
Right. And you also mentioned that it will be piloted ideally in 2 schools. Is that 2 primary schools in St. Kitts and Nevis, or is it 1 high school and 1 primary school? How is that going to be broken
We're looking at 1 primary school, 1 high school, and so it'll be 1 high school, 1 primary school in St. Kitts, 1 primary, 1 secondary in Nevis. That's just for the first semester. And then we start to roll out. With the trainers, we are hoping to do a more expansive trainers, so that every teacher would be able to benefit from that. And this is a whole of society approach. I think Dr. Marcus spoke about that at another discussion, in that when you reach children, you also have the opportunity to reach their parents, their guardians. So at parents-teachers meeting, we'll be having small presentations, and there's the public relations team that will have more expansive relations, but also twinned with education. Because it's important that we reach out not just to the students, they're just the sort of fillip, through the lens through which we expand to the rest of the nation.
And there are programs in some schools that exist already. You mentioned the cooperatives already, of course. Junior Achievers also is something that it runs. So will that work in tandem with each other?
Certainly. The whole idea is, as we're building out this program, we're bringing on champions, we're bringing on collaborators. And so we're looking at bringing on all of these co-ops that exist in school, linking them into the program, all of these other junior achievers, whatever clubs that they are, to also see them as part and parcel of the program. And that's part of the discovery once we get into the precise school. Yes.
We mentioned, of course, that it's an innovative and groundbreaking program. Has ECCB worked with any other country? Of course, ECCB serves the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. With any country that have a similar program, such as what is being implemented here in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Not that I know of, but there's always the leadership of the one that then brings the others along. So I will let Dr. Marcus expand on that one.
Well, I mean, from our research, we have not seen that in the region. I don't know globally. I'm sure there's really nothing new under the sun, as they say. But for our context, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, for sure, this has never been done. I mean, I would love to go back in a few years and be eligible for this program, quite frankly. But from what we gather, this is not. There's nothing like this in the region, and we're happy that we could do something which we think will cause a generational shift in a positive way.
Right. Okay, and so we'll move on now to the saving accounts for for children between the ages of 5 to 18. And you discussed that a bit more information a bit earlier, but tell us about, for instance, the National Bank. Why was the National Bank chosen?
Right. So the National Bank and, of course, the cable, both of these are government entities, government-owned entities. And because the program is being born out of government, for example, so to speak, we felt it was important to start with these indigenous entities for the savings as well as the investment. And so that's why the SKNIS National Bank has been chosen. And that $500 that persons will be getting, we are happy to say that the National Bank will be giving us a favorable rate, which we'll announce, a favorable savings rate to further enhance that particular amount that would be initially deposited. We want to make sure that that particular account, you know, is something that is attractive compared to what is on the market as well, to help to bolster and improve, you know, enhance the actual overall program.
And the setup of the accounts, will that be done ideally by the schools? Will that be done by the task force, or will that be going to be done?
Right. So we have a subcommittee right now that is working in tandem with the SKNIS National Bank to work on the actual process for that. We have some precedents in certain areas where we have information on students already, because there's been programs. For example, just last year, the back-to-school voucher program that the government did. So there's a database there already of information, you know, parents, children who are currently in school. So it's a matter of verifying that information up to date right now, or up to September when we intend to start it, and make sure those children are still in school, etc. They still live where they say they live, etc. So we have a bit of a baseline that we can start with, which will hopefully avoid persons making a run on the bank to have to go and set up an account. We can actually do the setup remotely for those persons that are already in the database. And then working with the Ministry of Education and the schools, looking at the new enrollments, because every day, of course, somebody turns 5 years old, you know, and cross-referencing all of that, we would be able to hopefully streamline that approach in terms of setting up those accounts. And from the initial data, I think it's about 4,000 or 5,000 children that we already have just from the back-to-school program that we have information for. So that's more than just about half. From our data, it's about between 10,000 and 11,000 children, young people that would be eligible for the program.
I want to be clear, it's both primary and secondary schools?
Primary, secondary, even tertiary, because CFBC and Nevis Sixth Form College will have young persons who are 18 and under.
AVIC as well too?
And AVIC, yes.
Right, okay. And in terms of the monies that will be deposited now, the $500, the idea, as you mentioned, is to grow wealth. The interest rate, the favorable interest rate, as you mentioned. And so the idea is not that if you wish to buy a Christmas gift that you go and you touch that.
Correct. So the premise is that you cannot touch the account. So I guess you can think of it as a fixed deposit account for all intents and purposes. You cannot touch the account at all until you successfully graduate, should I say? Maybe graduate from the program, right? So you can envision someone who comes in at 5 years old, that when they turn 18 and they're now a young adult, they have the option of now accessing these funds. They may choose to leave it, maybe they're heading off to college, they take out some of it to help with college, they want to start a business, whatever, because they would have been gaining this education along the way about investments, about savings, about shares. Who knows what it will be in 5-10 years with all of the digital currencies that are out there, all of these different opportunities. So at that point when they exit the program, it's up to them to do what they will with the funds from the savings account, and whether they choose to invest or do some other things. Yeah.
Right. And of course, Ms. Welsh, that is where the importance of the education comes in, because and there's a viral video going around where, you know, Pastor Lincoln Connor of the Antioch Baptist Church was mentioning in terms of younger persons making wiser use of their monies, being able to have the money work for them as opposed to spending it on parties or whatever else young people spend it on. And one of the things is that mentioned is like, and you find typically here in St. Kitts and Nevis that as soon as you get a job, you want to buy a car, right? And so this is where the education comes in and say that may not be the best option because yes, the money has been sitting there and accumulating interest, but maybe you don't want to go down that line.
Certainly. One of the things that, as I said, to make it relatable and practical, and particularly when you get to the 5th form and CFBC and 6th form education, is actually to bring in actual loan documents to young persons and let them go through what spending a car entails. It's not just the loan that you have to pay back. It's the insurance annual. It's the tires, the gas. And so the whole idea about adding it all up. And we don't wait until you are 5th form. If I recall, we have a game actually for first formers where they simulate every period that their pay changes and the scenarios changes. So you may start off 1 week and everyone is healthy, and the second week you hear a family member is sick, but if you didn't buy insurance from the allocation of your funds that you got from that first pay, then you have to pay X amount. And you have to keep every week as a group reallocating your resources and planning. And that is one of the things we teach in terms of financial planning, bringing it home. Do you buy a car, or do you buy a bus, or do you carpool, or do you walk? Do you buy lunch, or do you brown bag and take your own lunch? So all of these things really, and I think we want to hit home because more and more students, unlike in previous years, seem to be opting not to brown bag lunch, but to actually buy lunch. And if you add it up each day, and the school meals provides lunch, but if you add it up in each day, you realize they're spending a significant amount of money on lunch, and they don't have adequate savings to create the future they need or even to fall back on in case of crisis.
Capsec, about the investment aspect of it now, that's the 3rd prong.
Yes. So we have been working very hard on this aspect. It's a complex issue in a sense because, and Sybil can say more on this than I can, that, as a child you really can't own shares. And so what we envision happening is that we'll have to set up a special fund where the shares are all deposited in there. So everyone is in this grand pool, so to speak, with all of the shares. Again, as with the savings account, you cannot access the shares in that sense in terms of dividends being paid out and so on. The dividends would go back into the pool until you matriculate your way successfully through the program. But we were setting that up with the cable, who that is in the process right now of divesting their shares. National Bank already has shares available for purchase from the public. The cable does not. So the cable is working on that particular process right now. And so that's why I said maybe that would be the last phase of the program to roll out, because there's some technical aspects to be dealt with there. So yeah, so the idea is everyone is in this, is a part of the fund, so there's no individual risk, so to speak, right, for any one person, but everyone is in there sharing in the risk, so to speak, and the fund will be initially capitalized and so on through government resources. As I said, $500 worth of shares will go towards each child, citizen.
So the dividend, that would also be accessible at the end when you graduate from the program.
Correct.
At whatever age that is.
Correct.
And it will be done at a percentage, because as we mentioned, persons are added every year. Once they turn 5, they're eligible. We don't have to go through that again. They're eligible.
Correct.
And so they enter in the system. And so persons exiting, it will be done at a percentage of, how will that be calculated? Or has that been done as yet?
I can't speak to that. What will happen is that the fund will have to be managed by some entity, some statutory authority entity. statutory authority. And we are in the process of working on that. That's the legal aspect. We have a legal counsel on our team who has worked hard with us on that as well. So the fund will be set up, yes, but it will have to be managed properly and professionally and ethically, right, so that the benefits can be properly derived. So I can't say what the payout would be, for example, at the end for some at this moment.
Ms. Welsh, anything you care to add?
Well, remember, as persons come in, you also, after the fund gets to a certain level of maturity, persons will also matriculate out. And so what you have is a pool, and the benefits are divided equally among the pool based on the years that the person is in. So so that is basically, if I am in the fund for 5 years, I would have accumulated 5 years of dividends. If you're in the pool for a year, you would have accumulated 1 year. So it's really an equitable way. The longer that you are in, the longer you're able to partake of the earnings. Think about it as your money is working for you. So you put your money to work for you, and after 1 year, it has earned X amount. After 2 years, it has earned X plus that year. And it's the power of compounding. So the pool of money stays there along with the dividends, along with the value of the shares. And that continues to grow once the business does well, and it continues to grow. And when you matriculate out of the fund, and you say, well, I have spent the required number of years, I'm ready to leave, then you get what is due to you. And we are hoping that all of the education that you would have received, you would put that into practice.
And talk to us a bit about the stakeholders now, how they can contribute and help to really develop this program and what it's intended to do. And we're talking specifically about the parents, teachers, stakeholder agencies, and we'll talk a bit more about the stakeholders that are involved specifically at this stage right now. But tell us about how they can get involved and they can help.
I mean, those persons are critically important, from the teachers right to the parents. What we really want the parents to understand is that they should view this as an investment for their children. I heard, and we've laughed about it in the task force, that when the Prime Minister announced it, almost at the same moment, some employers were being asked, when will the $1,000 be available? They're ready for their $1,000, telling their co-workers. Not realizing and listening carefully to what the Prime Minister said, that this is for children. And so we really want the parents and guardians to understand that we are investing in the children. The funds are for the children, and for when they become young adults, for them to use and hopefully use wisely. So parents are a key part of this. Of course, the teachers who will be doing the training and educating of the young persons in schools, primary schools on up to tertiary, they are also critically important to ensure that they instill the right values, the right sense of what the curriculum is really about. And so those are key. In terms of persons who are in the private sector, I would hope that they would jump on board as well with the program. It's going to take a while for the fund to properly mature and so on and function. But we envision other entities coming on board so that shares can be bought in those entities as well. It's not just about solely government. It might not even just be solely about companies that are based in St. Kitts and Nevis. I mean, we have a regional securities exchange, and of course we have a global market that we can explore in time. So we really envision this thing not being a gimmick. This is not a one-off thing. This is something that we feel can be sustainable and ought to be sustainable for generations to come.
Right. And two important points that you mentioned that I wanted to touch on as well too, in terms of the levels of investments that will be made. Last week we had the Director of Social Security, Mr. Christopher Lord, on the program, and he spoke about the fact that Social Security funds are invested, 95% of them have to be made based on the law in local companies, and the possibility of expanding that is something that must be a critical part of the reform, so that they can have more yields. But it was important that the point that he made, that it must be done in low risk investments, so that the dividends that are returning they might be low, excuse me, that they are sure it is something that you are certain that you will get at the end.
And that's our thinking as well. We've talked about it being low risk, and that's why starting with our national bank, starting with the cable. But whatever we do, we intend to do it with the view that we want to make sure that we maximize what the benefits that these young people can have. And so whoever is managing the fund, that entity that will be put together to manage the fund will have that mandate, right, to not take high risks, so that when these persons matriculate through and graduate from the program, that we end up telling them, hey, well, we really don't have anything because the fund was poorly managed. So we want to be we're very mindful of that. And so that's the mandate that, for sure, that's the top mandate we will set forth for this entity that will be managing the fund.
And Ms. Welsh, I'm sure the ECCB will have a critical input in that respect as well.
Well, we have been assisting in terms of providing guidance on how you set up a fund, how you look at investment guidelines to ensure that your risk return is commensurate with your objectives, because the higher the risk, the higher the return. And so one has to look at what is the overall objective, and then you shape your investment guidelines in accordance with those objectives. And that is important, because that is really what helps to ensure that you stay on course. So that is equally important. While you want to pursue high returns, you have to make sure that they are within the construct of your objectives, that what is the amount of risk you're willing to take on. And that becomes your barometer of how you go about defining those investment guidelines. So the ECCB has been engaging the task force, particularly the committee charged with that responsibility and providing guidance.
So no investments in these stock exchange, or not should I say the foreign exchange that persons do, these things that persons take up online and they just go and invest money, none of that?
Well,
None of that. The investment guidelines usually tells you what is deemed as appropriate investment classes, asset classes, equities. And so that is part of the first thing of any investment portfolio, is to get your guidelines right, because that's your governance aspect. Once you have that governance, and then you're guided by that.
And the other thing that you mentioned, Capsex, in terms of the word that you use, sustainable.
Yes.
It fits, hearing what you're saying and explaining more about the program, it clearly fits into the Sustainable Island State agenda that the government has set.
Yes, correct. And I don't know, maybe persons are getting tired of hearing the word sustainable, but as Sybil was saying, even back with the nursery rhymes and so on, if you repeat it enough, it sticks, right? And we don't just want to repeat it just because we want to repeat it and regurgitate it, but we really want it to sink into the psyche of persons that everything we are trying to do as a government, as an administration, is to ensure sustainability. So things that Dr. Clark and her team are working on environment and climate change, they're talking about sustainability. Healthcare, we're talking about sustainability and being resilient to hurricanes so we can sustain life during storms and so on. So sustainability is a buzzword, I know, here in St. Kitts and Nevis and globally, but we really and truly imbue that into the fiber of everything that we're doing. And this program in particular is critical in that regard as well, because we want to ensure that, one, the program is sustainable, but we also want to make sure the country is sustainable, and that means empowering these young people and equipping them with the right mindset, the right tools to make the right decisions financially for themselves, because that in turn helps us as a country, because then we will be a wealthier state, right? Because you'll have your own money to do what you need to do and have less reliance on the state to support you with social assistance programs and so forth.
And that money can be invested in pursuing further education.
Correct.
That money can be invested in setting up a business. That money can be invested in being used to make additional savings, since you would have the information to grow more wealth.
Correct. Correct.
And if I can also say, when you spoke about the issue of what is the responsibility of stakeholders, I think while the government is pursuing the development of financial education among the school children, our youth, I think it's a signal for businesses to also advance the financial skills of their employees. Because you want to be able to say, well, okay, this is happening at the education front for school children. But I, as an employer, also can see this as a catalyst to start thinking about how do I have capacity development sessions for my employees so that there's a complement between what the government is doing at the forefront of youth education, building financial skills, building investment skills, building saving skills, and what is complementary on the private sector to do that for their employees. And I think that is where you would see that whole of society approach when everyone says, okay, that's a signal for us to complement what the government is doing.
And it has to be an authoritative approach. Everyone must be bought in, everyone must realize that it's something that will help to contribute to grow the country and make them more independent. I think the term that you use, CAVSEC, that we don't develop into a welfare state, and of course the government spends quite a bit on social programs, yes. Right? And so that will help to allow the monies to be used to channel into more other projects, I should say, not more, but other projects, yes. That would help to develop the infrastructure, perhaps build new schools where further empowerment, where further education can take place. And certainly that is something that I think is very good. And it seems like this program is very exciting based on the concept, yes. Based on what we see on the paper. And so we just close off with the task force. I'll give you an opportunity, CAVSEC, to mention who the key partners are in this program.
Yes, and I appreciate you for allowing me to do that, because I like to tell people that I know I'm intelligent because I know that I know nothing. And that's from Socrates, not the Calypsonian. Socrates.
Knows quite a lot, which is why the PhD is next to his name.
No. So I step back a lot too because of these wonderful people who I have the privilege to work with. So on the task force, besides myself and Sybil, is Mrs. Hilary Hazel, who is the Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Ms. Davinia Tomlinson, who is a finance and investment expert, Mr. Melvin Basso from the Ministry of Education, and from the cable, we have, who is a key partner, of course, we have Pat Walters, who is the CEO, as well as Sheldon Mitchell, who is the CFO. Also, we have Mr. Terence Crosman from the Managing Director, and he's the Managing Director at SKNIS Nevis National Bank, another key partner. Peter Jenkins, Mr. Peter Jenkins, he is President of the SKNIS Nevis National Cooperative League Limited. And Mr. Steve Farrier, who is immediate past president of the Bankers Association, and Mrs. Pamela Herbert Daniel, who is the new president of the Bankers Association. So I just want to pause there to mention those two entities, the Cooperative League as well as the Bankers Association. You notice we started with National Bank, but of course in the future we want to expand. And we wanted to get the viewpoints of the credit unions as well as other financial institutions outside of the National Bank, and hence having these persons on the task force. Giving us legal counsel is Crown Counsel 2, LaShawn Kesmart from the Chamber, the Attorney General's Chamber, the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. And from the Nevis Island Administration, we have Janisha Daniel, who is an audit manager in the Inland Revenue Department there in Nevis. So again, a very strong team, and Sybil, who is a senior project analyst from ECCB. A very, very strong team, not just on paper, but I mean, we have some robust discussions, healthy discussions. We meet, as I said, all the time outside of the normal meetings. And so we're doing quite a bit of work to hopefully make this novel idea become more than an idea and become reality.
Okay, we have just under 1 minute left, just a little bit over. Ms. Welsh, I'll give you an opportunity for final comments, and then Dr. Natta.
Sure.
Well, what I would like to just say is that this is a project that the ECCB is really privileged to be a part of. It's one that we champion. We recognize that nation building is synonymous with building the region, and that really is what the ECCB is about. And so we continue to champion, and we see this project as a catalyst to move out beyond the one member and move into the other 7 members so that it becomes regional, and it has to start somewhere, and it is starting here.
And St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes.
Capsic?
Yeah, so thank you once again for having the task force come and educate persons about this particular program. I'm really appreciative of that. As I said during the course of our discussion, we want to implore our parents and guardians to really understand and appreciate that this particular program is beneficial to their children, their guardians, and it is solely for their benefit. And so we encourage you to support them in everything that they're doing in terms of this particular program. It is the savings and the education portion as well. And finally, I just want to announce that we will be launching a competition to name this program. We were discussing names amongst ourselves, and then with the Prime Minister's guidance as well, we thought it best to throw it out to the public to name the program. So we've been saying Financial Education and Savings Program, which sounds very lengthy and cumbersome. So we'll be throwing that out to the public very shortly as a competition to give us a name that would, resonate with everyone for this particular program. So the public can look out for that very shortly, and we look forward to their contributions to having a name for this program that, again, would sustain and live on.
Okay. Stay tuned for 2 official channels for more information.
Yes.
Right. Okay, Sybil Welsh and Dr. Marcus Natta, thank you very much for joining us for this edition of InFocus.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And we'd like to thank you, viewers and listeners, for being a part of this discussion. We trust that you will join us again next week at the same place at the same time. I should mention that I'll be away from the desk for a while. I'll be on vacation and someone else will be here, so we trust that you will join us and give them the usual support. We thank you so much. In the meantime, I'm Ian Richards. I'll see you soon.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.